when I first realized that like my life genuinely was in danger at my own hands, like I was like my high school years were the worst. Like the experiences I was having with my father were just traumatic. And I didn't know what to do with that. So the only way I could think to solve it was to take my life. And when I realized how like crazy that was, like I didn't want to die. It was just like, that's the only way I could think to solve the problem I was having. I decided like the first thing I did is I said, I want to express this to my dad. And I knew I couldn't call him and tell him because he would get too angry and he would yell and scream and become terrible and all those things. I sat down and I wrote him a letter. And the letter was like 10 pages. It was a very long letter. I wrote it by hand. This is before like email was what it was now. This is in spring of 1995. Never forget it. And I sat down and wrote him a letter. And I poured into, I literally, I was crying as I was writing the letter. And I was telling him, here's how your treatment is impacting me. And here's what could potentially happen if we don't get this sorted out. Like I'm literally writing all this stuff. And I was so proud of myself when I wrote that letter. I put it in an envelope, mailed it to him, and I couldn't wait for him to get it because in my head, like if he understood what was happening and the turmoil and trauma that I was going through, it would lead to some sort of change behavior, some sort of breakthrough, and potentially save my life. Like it was a lot of hope in that letter, you know, like if he reads this letter, things could change. And that was a massive thing for me at that time. So, the letter arrives and I'm living in a college dorm room at the time. So the next time we spoke, he's getting on to me about something. And it was a few days and he's getting on to me about something. He's yelling at me and he's calling me names and ripping me apart. And I said, Dad, did you read that letter? He said, yeah, I read it. I ripped that thing up and threw it away. And I was crushed. Like that was the first time I'd ever just opened myself up, especially to him, and just said, man, I need things to change. And here's why. There was no anger in that letter. There was no rage in that letter. There was pleading and begging. Like, I need things to change. And here's why. And his response was, I ripped that thing up and threw it away. Expletives were in there.